Aita for telling my friends how I felt. Alright, so I 22NB have been with my partner 21M for almost 5 years now. He had these two best friends 22M 23M. And we shall say my partner's name is Henry, friends' names are Richie and Tommy. I feel I need to add context of background, so here goes my word vomit. I've known Richie and Tommy since I was 15-16, they have always been a part of my social circle and I've always been friends with them even if it was just casual small talk friends at first. They were more of my boyfriend's best friends for a while, but through that we got closer again since we were always hanging out. Let me make it clear, I always gave the option for me to not be there. I never wanted to be the GF that was annoying and didn't let them have boys' night. This dynamic changed when Tommy got a girlfriend in 2021 and completely ghosted Henry. Richie and I, over time we found out he chose his GF over friends because he was too busy, and it hurt Henry and Richie a lot. But we hung out with Richie every single day after Tommy left. The whole year excluding maybe a few weeks because a small spat. We turned into a best friend trio. I was constantly there and helping Rich through his breakup he was going through and his friend breakup as well. Not to pat myself on the back because that's what friends do, it's just we got super duper close when Tommy was gone and he was like one of my brothers and I cared about him obviously. One day we find out Tommy was single after about a year, and my boyfriend decided to reach back out so they could talk about everything because he missed him. It was a year of torture for all of us, wondering what happened and theorizing because it's very hurtful and confusing. Tommy comes back around September 2023, very apologetic, explains everything, that he just got too involved in his relationship, she was crazy and verbally abusive, he was very busy blah blah blah, but still he was like, it's my fault I let this happen, I will never let this happen again, I swear I love you guys, I was dumb, and so on. Me and Henry believed him and trusted him, maybe too quickly. Richie swore up and down he never trusted him many times though. So, Almsad, as soon as Tommy is back, we add him back into our inner circle because we all did miss him and his presence. Quickly he became part of our everyday hangout, was constantly sleeping over at Henry's house, we were always together. My worry was that Henry, Tommy and Richie had been a best friend trio before, but then I kind of took Tommy's place, so I was like, oh, do I step back guys? Like, am I supposed to not be as present and let y'all have guy time? Both Tommy and Richie said, no, essentially, I am one of the boys, I stuck around, I was there when Tommy wasn't, I wasn't gonna get kicked to the curb like that. Basically both reassured me and told me that was silly, that I belong in the group, to put it short. Anytime me or anyone had a doubt about our group and the dynamic, the boys were always like, nah, you're one of the boys obviously, like you're one of our best friends. Just keep this in mind for later. So we proceeded with both of them being our best friends, hanging out every night, if not every weekend, constantly inviting them to everything, we were all very close. So about 2 months of Tommy being back, he informs me and Henry that Richie was talking to a girl that assaulted my boyfriend back in the day. Someone who we had all made a huge point she was not to be in any of our lives since she did something horrible, and was off limits to ever bring around because 1. Trauma 2. I am also crazy and will swing on this person had been really close with Richie and Tommy before, but Rich couldn't let her go for some reason even though it had been years of no contact. So this unfortunately started a cycle in the group. Tommy would come up to me and Henry saying Richie is talking to that girl and said he didn't want to tell you, then Rich in my ear like, I know Henry trusts Tommy but I don't. He should nt ever be trusted again. Already I am like, what is going on, because both Richie and Tommy are talking about each other immediately. Both also telling Henry, you know you're my best friend, I'll always choose you over him type, like they both said this way too much. Then Henry gets hospitalized, which happens often enough because a condition he has. Richie had many opportunities to visit Henry in the hospital through the year before, never did. Tommy did immediately though and told us he offered Richie to come and he said no, Henry's just gonna be in a bad mood anyway. I am good with having never seen Henry like this, he needed the company, actually. And then in the same sitting I was told Richie was talking about me and it wasn't a big deal but it felt hurtful. So this starts a small resentment towards Richie, since he was displaying bad behavior like not wanting to visit his best friend in the hospital, not wanting to tell Henry he was in contact with his assaulter, and then saying bad things about me. Just started a snowball effect of, and bad feelings. Over time with Tommy around, Rich starts acting like just a straight up bad friend, just doing a lot we don't agree with. We hear a lot from Tommy, remember, the one Rich doesn't trust but keeps telling him everything he wouldn't tell Henry. And it's all just upsetting, so I get to the point I don't want to see him because I just feel gross knowing what I know. We did start hanging out without him. Rich got upset, so Henry had a big talk with him, telling him we know everything and he's been a bad friend, and like confronts him. Rich seems receptive and blocks the assaulter. We start to repair things. We do our best to have everyone stop talking behind each other's backs, and we repair our friendships as much as we can, and honestly have a great few months. Everything was really good and everyone seemed happy, and it was honestly a great time. But Tommy and Rich always had a lingering disdain for each other. I understand why, because Rich wasn't a good friend in all honesty. But Tommy just had to bring up everything Rich said about us, especially me, and over time I couldn't help but get bugged, because usually, Rich can be an, we just let it go and he's fine the next week usually. But it was harder to ignore with someone around who was constantly bringing it up, and also seeing a side of Rich we chose to ignore. Also with someone around opening our eyes to the mistreatment as well. But then Rich would do the same thing and vent about Tommy to us about really old stuff. It just was messy, but it was back and forth from them secretly hating each other to being besties. Honestly, they were worse than any girlfriends I had with their mood swings. It was kinda crazy. I will say this is where I am, and I would partake in talking, either if I was upset too or just trying to help the other person figure things out. It was never anything I wouldn't say to their faces other than some political views, but that's just how I am not afraid to tell anyone exactly what I said behind their backs. And trust me, I did when it was needed. Now into the last few months, which leads up to the actual issue. Besides smaller issues here and there, everyone was fine with each other for some time, no outward beef. Richie was still proving himself to be a good friend since the incident was not long ago, but in all honesty he just kept doing more questionable, that made us feel weird. He really never did anything for anyone unless he got something out of it, or if it was a girl it was just because he wanted to hook up. Even if he won't admit it, we all knew, so that was a sad realization to come to, but we just decided to try not care and keep him around since we cared about him a lot and that he had a lot of potential to change. Tommy, since he had been single, was on his self-care grind, like dating, gym, work and friends was his priority, and he was constantly like, "I'll never get tied down like that again. I'll never let myself go because a girl again, I need to focus on me, blah blah blah." So right after all this Richie happened, Tommy couldn't talk about anything but his hatred of Richie. It got crazy, getting laid girls, and his family issues. But the issue is he wouldn't ask about anyone else's problems or let us get a word out. He wouldn't try to talk about anything else other than why he was upset and his roster. We were obviously still there for him, but his motives in life changed completely, and as soon as that happened all of his efforts of being a good friend slowly started dissipating. Around this same time both the boys were like, "Let's go clubbing, let's go do this," etc. But I had been having really intense and debilitating stomach issues. I told them about my struggles and thought they understood, but it was still constant planning of going out or going on a trip or yada yada. I am a bit of a pushover with plans, so I'd usually say yes but possibly no because of what I was dealing with. It's hard to go an hour out into the city with limited bathrooms when I either need to vomit or diarrhea randomly. Not gonna be good. Plus if I am already in crippling pain I'd be miserable as is. I didn't have a job either, so I was broke as a joke. The only one who had a job at the time was Tommy. A huge issue for me though is as I was their best friend and part of the group, none of them would text or call me about plans. Not even a quick text in the group chat. They would always either plan in person or go through Henry, which got annoying because playing a game of telephone for plans through a man with untreated ADHD, it's just not smart. Things get easily miscommunicated or forgotten, especially when there's no reminder of said plans to either me or Henry. They would go through Henry even if they were mad at me and had a problem to talk about, like never ever would talk to me about anything serious I did, unless I pried or brought it up myself. So I start catching the drift. Tommy Rich are getting annoyed with plans, either me having to cancel because of my stomach issues or plans not being communicated to me and me not being able to. One specific instance I felt made a big issue was Richie's b-day. Me and Henry had been on a trip to see my mom, where I had a really bad stomach flare-up. We ended up coming back on Richie's b-day since I had been unable to help Henry drive back. Then the whole way home my car overheated about 5 times, so it took us a while. We got to spend his last hour of his b-day and we felt horrible, but he said it was fine since the group had been over and we were still going out the next night. I was still having bad issues and I had requested to the group that Henry not DD that night. He's usually DD since he doesn't drink, but I didn't want to have an issue and make everyone go home, so I asked we take a separate car and one of the many other people drive instead. Somehow, Tommy was already drinking and didn't step up to drive beforehand, and our other friend Carrie said she wouldn't drink and would drive, then had a small drink before we were gonna leave. Her GF got pissed and they had a fight, which then led to our friend taking 2 hours to come back and says I am not going anymore, mind you we are at her house, and cancels the whole night. We ended up not clubbing but went back to Richie's to hang out, and he's pissed at her and we comfort him and he's over it in 2 days, saying no biggie, she didn't mean to. Later I find out through Tommy that Richie was blaming me for ruining his birthday since I wouldn't let Henry drive. Reality is Henry offered because I was literally worried about ruining the night by making everyone go home because my pants or something, LMAO. Another thing to add that was upsetting is a month later I had been feeling better, went out to visit a friend and road trip back with them. I had a huge flare-up on my trip, of course because my body hates me, so we end up staying a day later, which landed on Carrie's B-Day. So I have a 12-hour road trip in a hot car, midsummer, having a violent flare-up and running off 3 hours of sleep because the flare-up. Carrie texts me saying, hey, everyone is coming over tonight, can you make it? I tell her what's up. She's like, ah, please come, so I am like, sure, of course I'll come when I am in town. So Henry picks me up, we go to Carrie's, and I told Henry I wasn't doing good and wanted to be quick, like 10 to 15 minutes just to say hi and happy B-Day. He understood and was like, okay, sounds good. We go in and immediately Richie is like, Henry, let's play pool, and I look at Henry and I am like, hey, we said we'd be quick. Then I am bombarded by Carrie and her GF saying no, don't leave soon. No, stay longer, OMG, what, from Carrie, who's fully guilting me and begging, and then I am like, no, I really don't feel good, I am sorry, I just wanted to stop by then go home with Henry, like I said, and then she's like, how about Henry takes you home and comes back to party? And I am like already irritated from the whole making him DD every time and not letting him say no to things to take care of me while I am sick as he chooses to do on his own. He's a lovely guy, so I go, he's my boyfriend, so no, if you keep pushing me I am gonna snap, and then everything was fine. We hung out and then left. So Tommy told me that Richie was saying I was being controlling at the party and wouldn't let Henry play pool and that I am crazy, and was going off on Carrie saying, well, he's my boyfriend, back off, like I was jealous or something. When in reality I reminded Henry he didn't have time and was more so telling Carrie, know your place, you are being rude, like her girlfriend was right there, it wasn't about me being territorial. So around this time I am very aware of Richie's secret disdain for me since Tommy couldn't keep his mouth shut. Richie never once asked Henry how he was feeling, if he felt I was being controlling, never checked in, never confronted me on it or said a word, just used it as leverage to tell Tommy since he wasn't there and needed someone to talk about. Now back to Tommy and his irrational need to. He ended up hooking up with one of our closer girlfriends in our extended group. We all told him it was a bad idea, but then it happened. He wouldn't shut up about it, and then he ghosted her because he went on a date with this new girl he met, let's call her Dana. During this same time, every weekend we would try to make plans with Tommy, as we do, either he'd invite himself or imply he wanted to go, so we'd pick him up and do whatever. Except as soon as Dana was in the picture he'd still do this, but then last minute, oh I am busy now, what about this time, or how about tomorrow instead, when it was plans with our other friends, so like no, we can't reschedule. One weekend we go to his house since he went back and forth 3 times on plans, and we were like, okay, we will come over. We walk in his house and to our surprise Dana and him, unofficial at this time, are cuddling on the couch. They don't see us, so Henry thinks it's funny to call him, Tommy not knowing we are in the other room. Tommy looks at the call and declines and goes this, and then we come into the room like haha. And then it's so awkward because this is my first time meeting this girl and it's dead silent and they are like all over each other, nothing's being said, and me and Henry just feel like we were intruding. Anytime we tired to talk it was just weird. Not a big deal, just like weird. We ask Tommy, are you guys official? He says no. A week later he tells us, oh yeah, we started dating that same day. But he just decided to not say anything, which we found a lil odd. So about 5 weekends of Tommy making plans, canceling and changing them until we started getting fed up. While this is happening we notice Tommy and Dana moving very quick, spending every day and night together, sitting at her work on the weekends during her shifts, something he used to do with his ex and said was crazy and would never do again. We notice it's exa CTLY against what Tommy was saying the last 8 months for what he wanted in his life. We ended up talking to Richie, saying we were concerned and maybe it was warning signs like last time. At first he defends him, then after hearing more he get on a whole fit of him, he's not allowed to do this again. We need to tell him, and we are like, well, they are always together and we need to respect his relationship and talk about this in private. And Rich says that his relationship, he and his relationship don't deserve any respect. I do not trust him. Then we talk it out and figure it's not that bad right now. Give it a week, let's see how things go, and if it fails have a calm conversation. Then Tommy calls, tried to pick a fight because we were all together, then grills us if we are okay. We didn't feel comfortable saying anything yet because we still wanted to wait things out. He invites us over to hang with him and Dana, so we go over. Tommy tried to confront us as soon as we walked in front of Dana and his whole family, and we all clammed up and said we were good, but for the most part we were good. Just mildly annoyed and concerned at most, but we had a plan to work things out. We had a great night that night and bonded with Dana, we all really liked her. So all is good for that week, we figure they are in a cupcake phase and it'll pass. 2 more times of them going clubbing passed that we chose not to go, for a few reasons, but we had been under the impression it was annoying but no big deal. Now to my birthday the next month, the last day I saw them, fun fact. So I invite both the boys, tell them I am having a small get-together at my friend's house. I don't get a response from Tommy until a week later, the night before my b-day, saying I am not sure Dana bought me tickets to a sports game right before you asked. So Tommy calls Henry on my b-day saying, hey man, Dana got me tickets to a sports game, IDK, how late y'all are gonna be there, but let me know and I can try to swing by. Henry says cool, tells him to call me and let me know. An hour later he surprisingly does for once, doesn't say happy birthday or anything, just kinda says the same, and hangs up. Not rude, just like okay bro? Richie calls Henry too. Nothing about anything important, just interrupts my b-day plans to make sure Henry tells everyone that we backed out of a camping trip and to text the group. We backed out because I found out we had to, in a hole, and it was gonna be 110 degrees N, too hard, so Henry texts the group. They all respond, but not a single person wished me a happy birthday. It's fine, but I notice things like that because I know they all know it's my birthday, so it's irking. Anyways, I have my lil b-day party. Richie shows up a few hours late for no reason, not a big deal, but doesn't say happy birthday and just sits in the corner silent and bitchy anytime he's talked to. Few of my other friends noticed he kept giving me dirty looks and seemed very disrespectful that night, but I had brushed it off as not a big deal. It's only a big deal when my friends try to be nice to him and he just acts better than everyone. So at some point in the night, Tommy texts Henry, when are you guys leaving? We just left, I just want to see if you'll be driving an hour back right now or not. His girlfriend lives near the game, so Henry says don't worry about it, it's okay, thinking he was more burden coming. Then Tommy hits Henry with a K, so we know he's mad since he's childish and does that. I got sad wondering why he's starting on my birthday, and mentioned that he never even said, and then that finally prompted Richie to say happy birthday. Then Richie went to say Tommy was annoyed about something, and stopped himself and just said treat the passive-aggressive with kindness. It was very obvious they had been talking behind our backs though. Tommy shows up at like midnight, since I told Henry to just tell him to come, leaves Dana passed out in the car. We are hanging out, I am nearly passed out, and then I bring up why you gotta be tonight, and he's like sorry not to make this about me, but I was mad at Henry for not answering my calls the other day, so I called like 4 times and no answer. It was only 1 call by the way I was going through, and he ignored me when I needed someone, and in my head I am like, and all the times you ignore me when I try to vent. What about every time you talk over Henry to talk about your own stuff? When's the last time you checked in on anyone at all? So it was a fine night, but when we left they completely ignored me when I tried to say bye. I was annoyed, and all of the things I've mentioned here kinda just got in my head, and I am like I realized I am not even treated like a good friend anymore, and it felt really hurtful. They had even been treating Henry weird. So I guess this was the beginning of my breaking point. That week after, Henry tells me the boys were acting really weird the last night they hung out, but mentioned they wanted to go to the club that Saturday. We had plans that day and the said club was a whole hour out, so I was like sure, I'd love to, but maybe play it by ear though, and Henry says Tommy told him he needed to know by tomorrow, and I was like kinda annoyed by that because why can't I just see how I am feeling that day? It's most likely a yes, so I just tell him it'll be okay, just say yes since I didn't need the drama. Next couple days later I text the boys, hey come kick it at my place on Friday. I figured I had needed just a good hangout and maybe I could bring up some of my griefs with them and smooth things over, how we normally deal with things. I am met with Tommy saying what about the comedy club, what? Richie told Henry Tuesday, he was supposed to tell you. Oops, I didn't know, I wasn't told. Henry had no recollection of this plan, mind you. Then I decide to say guys, it really hurts my feelings when you don't keep me in the loop. I'd appreciate if you could just shoot me a text when we plan things so we avoid this happening. No response from Tommy or Richie at all. Friday rolls around, no text still. We check their locations and they went to the comedy show without us completely. Said not a word at all. Had they said anything just acknowledging what I said, I would have loved to go since it was a plan I brought up many times previously. We get really butthurt because we can't understand how me saying that warranted us getting ghosted and silently uninvited. The last thing I said after that the next day was thanks for the response guys, and I left the group chat and Life 360 because I felt hurt. I still can't understand what prompted them doing that. Saturday, Tommy texts Henry the first, take it y'all aren't coming tonight? Clubbing. So Henry says he's pissed at them. Absolutely not. There are things that need to be talked about and they are messed up for ignoring it, so to that he only gets hostility. And basically it was either we went to the club with them and talked it out on the way, or Henry had to call him because Tommy doesn't do the texting thing. This angered Henry since everything is always on Tommy's time and he makes no effort to fix things on his own, so Henry tells Tommy he's livid and he needs to figure it out for once. He gets ignored. I decided since they will give me no opportunity to hash things out, I will just send them a long text being like, I am upset you guys say I am one of your best friends and that I am one of the boys, and then can't even tell me when upset or about plans. You can't respond to my concerns and you guys were dicks at my birthday. Richie, I know all the you talk about me and I am not sure why. Tommy, you're just mad all the time and can never focus on anything but yourself. Y'all bad friends and we don't deserve to be ghosted after all these years of friendship. Obviously it was a lot more lengthy, this is just a gist. Like I unfortunately went off, but I was emotional. It felt heartbreaking and I felt they had been very disrespectful leading up to this. I understand I might be hurt their feelings though, and maybe that's where I went wrong, but they still started it by blatantly ignoring me. Through all this, Richie couldn't give a to respond once. Tommy texts me and Henry a week later saying he wanted to talk things out, but he felt I was very hypocritical and victim carding and then tried to invalidate everything I had to say. I responded saying he obviously didn't understand the issue here. We definitely need to get some things straight though, so when are you free? Don't talk to me though if all you're gonna do is invalidate how you made me feel. No response. Almost 2 months later, Tommy texts only Henry saying he's moving in a week and he wanted to talk out before he left. Henry says Friday at a park. We go, because obviously I am pulling up too. This started because of me. We sit and wait an hour, he never shows up. He calls that night saying he's sorry he fell asleep and what day should we do this? Mind you, the whole time he's like not saying what works for him when we ask, just keeps making Henry put in effort to figure out a plan. Henry texts him a day later making a plan. No response. Tommy waits all week to say to Henry the night before he's moving, I am at home packing stuff up right now, if you want to come talk. Henry is mad because he was ignored all week just for him to barely try to squeeze in a chat while he's busy and his whole family will be up his. Henry decided to ignore him, which prompted Tommy to say, I know you're mad I didn't respond, but I don't know what you want me to do, blah blah blah. Henry at this point has had his last straw, realizing that nothing will change and this isn't someone he wanted to fight to have around anymore. Henry is normally the most level-headed out of anyone we know and wrote out a very well-worded text on the situation and his feelings, but he was still obviously angry. Henry told him it felt like he did exactly what he did last time he was in a relationship and cut us off the same way, very confidently as he gets in a relationship. That it felt like this all came out of nowhere and tired to explain his thoughts and hurt. Then he told him it's better if they aren't friends. Tommy didn't like this and went off saying a bunch of hurtful, saying I fight all of Henry's battles and I am walking all over him and that we need to realize this situation is about more than just our feelings and that they cut us off just cause and he's busy and moving in with Dana and him and Richie are completely fine and Henry's the one not coming around. This is the same guy who would constantly praise me and Henry's relationship saying he wanted something like that. Same guy who defended me when Richie was saying about me. Same guy who hated Richie the month before saying he wanted to cut him off and that he would never leave Henry's side, he's the best person in his life, and so on. Mind you, we never once got to hear their side. We asked so many times and obviously tried to sit down and talk, but never once were we told what we did what wrong or why we got silently cut off. Especially Henry. I understand me. I was a catalyst by bringing up how I felt, but Henry didn't do anything in the situation but say he was mad when he was confronted about plans. So now we lost our two best friends because we decided to stand our ground for once. We didn't cater to them and all I asked for was acknowledgement of what I was going through, because of them. And we got fully ignored, ghosted and cut off when we want to talk it out. No dignity to the end of friendship, no talk. No explanation, just literally catty BS and nothing. It makes me so sad because had I even hurt them I'd want to know and fix immediately. That's always how I've been. And at this point I'd rather they have said they wanted me out their life and still kept Henry around, because it's my fault they left. Aita for reaching out to them about my feelings? Aita generally in this situation? Henry also thinks this is his fault for some reason. I keep trying to telephone. Tell him if anything it's mine, but really, I feel it's on Tommy and Rich. So for Henry's sake, is he the peas? I barely proofread this, so please bear with me if it's redundant. 3.